member of the new Jedi Order's Jedi Council. This is according, of course, to the old Star Wars Expanded Universe, aka Star Wars Legends, as in the new canon timeline, Luke fails to re-establish his Jedi Order. Therefore, the new Jedi Order succeeding is only a part of the old Star Wars Legends EU timeline. Luke eventually decided that they had to, restart a Jedi Council, because for many years there were just Jedi Masters who would advise decision making. But eventually they decided, Luke decided that the Jedi Council of old should return, because in 35 ABY, after the Swarm War concluded, Luke was like, we need better guidance, so we need to have a new council. So he added members to the council. The first member of the Jedi Council we have here is Baratical. I should mention we're going in alphabetical order. Baratical is a female Yuzim Jedi Master, and was added to the Jedi Council in 44 ABY for the new Jedi Order. 44 ABY meaning 44 years after the Battle of Yavin, which takes place in A New Hope, the movie. So this is 44 years after that. Baratical was a Jedi Master and at some point was wounded earlier in her life, which resulted in a huge scar around her throat. She had golden fur and but with a white streak on her face from her scarring. We didn't get a lot of Baratical because she was introduced very late in the EU in Fate of the Jedi, although she may have been mentioned earlier than that. I think she was only a Fate of the Jedi addition to the EU, so we didn't get a lot of her character fleshed out, unfortunately. But it's certainly interesting that a Yuzim Jedi Master became a member of the Jedi High Council. What's also interesting is the character seems quite young and quite inexperienced and kind of came from nowhere, so to instantly become a Jedi Master and a Jedi Council member is quite impressive. Next we have Silgal, and Silgal is a female Mon Calamari Jedi Master. She was with Luke since the beginning, since the Jedi Academy book trilogy, and way back then Luke had first handpicked his first batch of Jedi who he really trusted, and Silgal was one of them. And Silgal eventually became a Jedi High Council member for Luke's new Jedi Order. Because Silgal was a medical healer, she was a skilled healer, not really a fighter, and she was known for her wisdom. Silgal's a really awesome character and was just a really gentle character in the EU, so it makes sense that her gentle wisdom would be a valuable addition to Luke's Jedi Council. Next we have Kyp Durron, who's another one from that first batch of Jedi that Luke chose. Kyp Durron was at first very strong-willed, very wanting to do good. He came from a rough background, but unfortunately, Kyp fell to the dark side, and because of what he did, millions died. Kyp Durron, though, eventually redeemed himself, though he skirted with the dark side again a couple times during New Jedi Order. Kyp was somewhat brash and would clash with his superiors from time to time, but he eventually kind of mellowed out and attained a status of wisdom that, the Yuuzhan Vong War's hardships kind of forced upon him. Kyp Durron is certainly a very interesting character and a beloved character by many of us fans. Kyp Durron is a very obvious choice to be on the Jedi Council for Luke's new Jedi Order, as he has been there for a very, very long time as a part of that order. Next we have Jaina Solo, or Jaina Solo Fell as she later became known. This is Luke's niece and his only surviving niece or nephew, and she is a very, very skilled Jedi. She's a skilled pilot, she's a skilled mechanic, she's a skilled Jedi. She's an incredibly skilled fighter. She has this fiery attitude that she inherited from her mother very clearly, and although she sometimes clashed with Leia and Han and even her uncle and aunt, she is a very wise young Jedi. She grew a lot over the different series, so she is a very obvious pick for the Jedi Council, even though she is young. I think many of us were surprised by how quickly she got to be on the Jedi Council, but it does make sense. She's a very obvious pick. She is the Sword of the Jedi. We never got to really know what that title meant, but she was prophesied to be the Sword of the Jedi for the new Jedi Order, so she's a very important character, and it's a very logical and obvious pick that she would be on Luke's Jedi Council. Next up is Kenti Hamner, who is said to be an old friend of Luke, Han, and Leia. This dude is a kind of old military figure. It's hinted at that he was part of the Rebels, he was part of the New Republic. He was this tactical military figure. He's quite staunch, quite not maybe personable. He's more uptight, and he was an old friend of Luke, Han, and Leia's, and he eventually became a Jedi. He even was the temporary Grandmaster of the Jedi Order when Luke was exiled during the Fate of the Jedi series. Unfortunately, though his intentions were good, Kenti Hamner's hands were tied by politics, and he wasn't able to make the best decisions during that era. And unfortunately for him, he was killed by a fellow Jedi, although it was neither his nor that fellow Jedi's fault. Kenti Hamner would be remembered as a temporary Grandmaster of the Order and a valuable member of the Council. He did many great things over the years during the Legacy of the Force time, and the Fate of the Jedi eras. He was a very great ally for the Jedi to have on their side. And he was a really, really kind of wise Jedi in his sort of older age, and even though he was kind of middle-aged, he was still shown to be quite an adept fighter at times. Kenti Hamner was certainly a good member of the Jedi Order, even if his eventual death was not under the best circumstances. Next we have Corran Horn, and Corran Horn was an X-Wing pilot, part of Rogue Squadron before eventually becoming a Jedi. Corran Horn was one of the guys who was there from the start of the Jedi Order, and although he never mastered telekinesis and couldn't use the Force to levitate objects, he made up for that with this, kind of street smarts and just overall skill and personableness and charm. He was experienced from lots of battles to where his military tact would be very important. He's a personable, kind of down-to-earth Jedi, and his logical street wisdom would come in handy. Corran Horn is a very obvious pick for Luke's Jedi Council. Next up we have K'Kruk, and K'Kruk became a member of the Jedi Council after Fate of the Jedi and Crucible. We don't know exactly when he became a member of the Jedi Council. K'Kruk was actually a member of the old Jedi Order and survived Order 66. He even fought at the Battle of Geonosis and survived that as well. So he survived some huge events. He survived all of the rebellion's fight against the Empire, and he even trained a generation of Jedi in secret. It's unknown how long K'Kruk was isolated before he came out of hiding and rejoined the Jedi Order, which was now Luke Skywalker's new Jedi Order. It is unknown exactly when this took place, but we can assume that he quickly attained the rank of Jedi Council member, as he was already a Jedi Master from the time before Luke. K'Kruk's wisdom from his many years of life and his skill and prowess as a warrior makes him a good choice to be on the Jedi Council. K'Kruk has seen a lot, so it makes sense that he could depart on his fellow Jedi some very important information for them. Some people believe that K'Kruk was actually the Grand Jedi Master of his time, about 170 years after A New Hope. And, that's very interesting. He, attains this rank of Grand Jedi Master. That is very interesting indeed, that he should have sort of that role, though it's never outright stated. Next up we have Kyle Katarn, and Kyle Katarn is a very, very interesting character. He started off as a Imperial agent, then he was a Rebel agent, and eventually he becomes a Jedi as well. He falls to the dark side, gets redeemed, he got sidelined in New Jedi Order, he got stabbed through by Jason Solo in Legacy of the Force, and he survived it all. Kyle Katarn has the same kind of street smarts as Corran Horn. He's very logical, very precise, very tactical, but he's also an incredibly gifted fighter. He's good at espionage, and over those years of fighting, he definitely attained some wisdom along the way. So Kyle Katarn is another logical pick for the new Jedi Order's Council. Next up we have Tricini Lobi, who is not actually a human, she's a Chev, and she attained some prominence during the Yuzon Vong War. She was noted for her ability to, hide in a crowd, so she had some kind of savviness for, disguise for hiding in plain sight. But unfortunately, she wasn't a member of the Jedi High Council for very long, of Luke's New Jedi Order, because she was killed in 40 ABY when she became tangled up in Jacen Solo and Lumiya's schemes, and when she had discovered too much, she died. But she fought well, and she fought against Alima Rar, who is an important Dark Jedi at the time, and she didn't really do much. I can assume that she was probably a very good Jedi to choose, but we didn't get to see a lot of her to where I can know if that was a good decision fully or not. She didn't last very long. That can be said of her. Next up we have Tilly Kwa. Tilly Kwa is a female Chadra fan, and we don't know exactly when she became a member of the Jedi Council, but we do know that it's after Luke's time. So it's about 138 years after the Battle of Yavin in A New Hope. And it's during a time during the Third Jedi Purge when the One Sith have returned, and we don't know exactly when she attained this rank, because we never saw her depicted as a Jedi, and we never saw her ascending through the ranks. But when we did see her, she was on the Jedi Council. From what we know of her, she seemed to have some wisdom. She seemed to make some decent decisions, although they were not the decisions the main characters made. She seemed somewhat logical, she seemed to have some wisdom, and she seemed to have some fire to her, some bitter spite deep within her, which that might just be Chadra fans as a general for their mouse-like species, but, she is certainly an interesting character nonetheless. Next up we have Octaramus, and Octaramus was from the planet of Chandrila, and Octaramus was a important character and Jedi who fought during the Yuzon Vong War, who trained some important Padawans, who affected many things. One of her love interests was one of the first Jedi to die during the Yuzon Vong War. His name was Miko Reglia, and Octaramus really evolved over her time in the Jedi Order. She started as a somewhat brash, immature young Jedi to really maturing over the course of time. She's definitely a good choice because she really saw some stuff during the wars. So it makes sense that she would be given the rank of being on the Jedi Council, because she really went through some stuff during New Jedi Order. Next up we have Trasa, who is another person who was who fought at the Battle of Geonosis and fought to survive Order 66, just like Kakruk. So we don't know when exactly she joined the New Jedi Order, but it was sometime after Luke had probably departed from the Jedi Order and was gone, which we don't exactly know when that was either. But when we see her, she's part of this triumvirate who are heading up the Jedi Council. Is she the Grandmaster or is Kakruk? We don't exactly know, but they're high-ranking members of the Jedi Council. She was wise even during the prequel era. She departed wisdom to characters like Quinlan Vos before the Phantom Menace. So she has been around for a very, very long time, and she has seen a lot. And so her experience is going to be absolutely vital for the Jedi Order to run. So it makes perfect sense that she would be a member of the Jedi Council. Next we have everyone's favorite wisecracking reptilian Jedi, Saba Sabatane, who is a Barabel female Jedi Master. Saba Sabatane is a very hilarious character. She has many fun lines, and she has a snarky, willful, fiery attitude to her that makes her so endearing. Saba Sabatine is a wonderful character, one that my favorite Star Wars author Troy Denning utilized a lot. She first came to prominence during the Yuzon Vong War, and then continued to fight during the time of Legacy of the Force, which was the Second Galactic Civil War, and then, of course, during the Abeloth Crisis and Fate of the Jedi. Sabatine actually killed Kenti Hamner in a duel, which was neither of their faults, and she felt really bad about it. But Saba Sabatine actually also helped to train Princess Leia to become a Jedi. Well, she already was a Jedi, but to elevate her skills and status. Saba Sabatine is a great Jedi who has a lot of snark and attitude, but also some wisdom and a caring side as well. She has a great sense of humor and an almost dark sense of humor, but at the same time, she's lovable. She's got an attitude to her, but at the same time, she's sweet. Saba Sabatine makes sense to be part of Luke's New Jedi Order Jedi Council. Next up, we have the great grandson of Luke Skywalker. This is Luke Skywalker's son, Ben Skywalker. This is his grandson, and this is Cole Skywalker. Cole Skywalker became the Grand Jedi Master. He was this really great character, although we didn't get to see a lot of him because he died in a heroic last stand as depicted in this image in 130 years after the Battle of Yavin on the planet of Ossus. Cole Skywalker, what we did see of him was this compassion that he had for the galaxy. He wanted to heal a broken galaxy around him and do a lot of good, and that can be admired about Cole Skywalker. Cole Skywalker was a Grand Jedi Master and the leader of the Jedi High Council when he was around. He had to negotiate with the Fel Empire, with the Galactic Alliance, and with all these factions, and he had to balance that with the self-interest of the Jedi Order. I think that he probably did a very good job. He clearly made some mistakes along the way, which Cole Skywalker sees as he goes through his journey during the Legacy comics, but overall, Cole Skywalker certainly did his best, and from what we did know of him, he was a very honorable man, and he makes sense to have been part of the Council. Next up, we have Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker being the Grand Jedi Master at this time, and the head of the New Jedi Order, and founder, it makes sense that he would be on the Jedi High Council. I mean, I don't even need to go over his stat sheet. Like, there's no reason he shouldn't be on here. Next is Mara Jade Skywalker. Mara Jade Skywalker is the wife of Luke Skywalker. So, you know, Luke might strain his marriage if he didn't include her. Of course, Mara Jade Skywalker was first one of the Emperor's hands. She was this terrible Dark Jedi. But Luke eventually convinced her to, you know, redeem herself, and she became a bounty hunter before eventually marrying him and becoming a Jedi herself. Luke even gives her Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber, which is a very sweet gift. Mara Jade Skywalker saw a lot, developed a lot, and evolved a lot as a person. She had a wisdom and this ethereal demeanor that was perfect for scenarios. She was fiery. She would do what needed to be done, and yet she was also very discerning of what was going on around her, so her wisdom does make sense to be on the Jedi Council, even without her being obviously a favorite for Luke, as that is his wife. Next we have Kam Solusar. Kam Solusar was the son of a Jedi who was a Jedi, but then he became a Dark Jedi when he was tortured by the Emperor's Dark Jedi led by Cedrus. He's featured in the Dark Empire comics, where he debuted in Dark Empire 2, but his backstory is explored in the Lightsider novella. Kam Solusar then appears in New Jedi Order Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi, shows himself to be a wise figure. He and Tion Solusar took care of all of the Jedi children and raised them and trained them. That's a big job, a big burden for him and his wife, and yet they did that during the entirety of the Yuuzhan Vong War, one of the darkest times in history. Kam Solusar didn't argue with what he had to do. He stuck with the kids and was able to raise them. And that is really a testament to his character and how he was willing to, you know, do work that maybe not everyone would be a fan of. You know, many of the Jedi would rather be fighting on the front lines, saving lives, and he was content to raise the next generation, you know, and be sidelined. And that's a good testament to him as a character. Kam Solusar had this personable, down-to-earth, kind of gritty charm to him, and he makes perfect sense to be on this Jedi High Council. Next up, we have Tion Solusar. She makes sense as well because she has a sweetness, a softness to her, yet she also at the same time has this pursuit and quest of all of the knowledge in the galaxy. And yet she is also a mother figure to many of the Jedi. She raised them with her husband during the dark times. Is she a fighter? She can be if she needs to be, but she's mostly just this gentle figure for the Jedi. She's a mother figure for many in the Jedi Order. And she has this wisdom because of all of the time she studied all the ancient artifacts of the Jedi around her. Therefore, she makes perfect sense to be a member of the New Jedi Order. Or, I should say, the New Jedi Order's Jedi Council. So there you have it. All of the Jedi who were members of the New Jedi Order's Jedi Council. I hope you enjoyed this video as I took a look at some of these characters and briefly explained who they were and why they deserve to be on the council. We don't actually know who was on the Jedi Council in between Crucible and the Legacy comics, so there's definitely a huge gap of characters who we'd be missing because we never got the stories in that era because Disney bought Star Wars and canceled the expanded universe, which is a gripe I can get to another time. And before I descend into a rant, I should probably round out the video, but I hope you enjoyed looking at the lore of the New Jedi Order, one of my favorite eras, and looking at Jedi, one of my favorite factions in Star Wars, and looking at the members of this New Jedi Order who were wise enough to earn a spot on Luke's New Jedi Order's Jedi Council. A very unique era of Star Wars, and it was great to see the Jedi Council continued after it had been discontinued due to Order 66 nearly wiping out all of the Jedi. So it's nice to see that tradition continue and be able to survive for so long as Luke reestablished it. And so, a bunch of worthy Jedi were definitely on this Jedi Council.